Talking about our emotions can be so scary for some people, but it's absolutely necessary. And it's also especially necessary in a relationship because that's where connection blossoms, is through our emotion. We fell in love. We didn't fall in love with facts. We fell in love with a person and their emotion and certain aspects about them. So we do have to talk about emotion, especially when we've been in a relationship for a long time and things have changed, kids and dynamics have changed. We do have to start opening up and talking about our emotions. But today I want to talk about how do we handle emotions that we're not necessarily comfortable with. I recently worked with a couple where she was very open and receptive to emotions. She even had therapy as a child, so she had some tools on how to handle certain emotions, but she was very much receptive and attuned to her emotions. And she also felt pretty confident in terms of his emotions and how to handle them and how to recognize them. Now, for her husband, he was the complete opposite. It felt like, or to him, he had no emotions. The two emotions that he knew that were in his vocabulary was he was either angry or happy. That's all he knew. There was no sadness, there was no fear, there was no vulnerability, frustration. It was just he was either happy or angry. Those were the two things that he knew about and he could recognize in people. What that means for him is the emotion like sadness, shame, fear, he didn't recognize it because for him, it wasn't necessarily something that he was comfortable with. He couldn't recognize it within himself or other people. Now, for yourself, imagine an emotion like sadness. Were you able to experience it as a child? How did your parents react or your siblings? Were they actually able to show sadness? Were your siblings able to show sadness? Did your parents ever show sadness? And what did that look like on them? Did you hear things like, don't be sad, big boys or big girls don't cry, or I'll give you something to be sad about, I'll give you something to cry about? Those type of dynamics in childhood form a belief about what we think emotions are and how they should be handled, or whether they are bad or good. While emotions are necessary and we all have them, do you know or have you ever explored your own story about emotions? And do you know your partner's story about emotions? I invite you both to explore your own and each other's worlds when it comes to emotion. Understanding each of the other person's world will bring you closer together. It will create connection. It will help you understand maybe what some of the struggles you've been having, some of the fights you've been having, is if the other person can't recognize your sadness or your shame or your fear, and then you don't feel understood, or that's where disagreements and fights come in, because we don't feel understood. We don't feel like the other person sees us. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I really want you to reflect on it and really try and understand, as I said, your world and your partner's world. For this exercise, we're going to explore the emotion of sadness. So I want you to think about, what's it like? What's it feel like? How do you react when you feel sad? Can you recognize, or do you know what it looks like on your partner when they feel sad? How does it make you feel when you see your partner sad? And if you can't recognize when they're sad, how does that make you feel, knowing that you can't tell when your partner is sad? What do you need when you're sad? And what do you not need when you're sad? These are important questions that you can share with your partner, especially what you need and what you don't need, so you can better understand the other person and yourself. When we can understand ourselves, we can understand the world around us better.